David and his encounter with Saul. And this is the second encounter with Saul. So David, before this, Saul is looking for him in the crags and the places where the goats hide. And David is in a cave. Saul doesn't know it. Saul goes into the cave to use the facilities. And David is there and stealthily comes up to Saul and cuts off the tassel of the back of his garment. And then goes out and calls to Saul and say, look, if I'm really your enemy, you'd be dead now. Look what I have. I mean, he's like a ninja, right? I mean, how do you get in and out of these caves? Because when you go into caves, usually the floors are very, very rocky, and that makes a lot of noise. That isn't enough for Saul. Oh, I'm sorry, David, I won't hurt you, I won't kill you. And then he's after David again. And then this time, Abishai stealthily sneaks into the camp with David. I just can't imagine the kind of bravery you would have to go into a camp and everyone is sleeping and they're probably all surrounding Saul as protectors, but for some reason you stealthily get in there and there he is laying on the ground, the guy who's trying to kill you, and you're like, wow, I can really take care of this guy right now. And Abner, who's probably an expert with a spear, says, let me do it. I won't need a second thrust. You pin him to the ground. And David's like, no, mercy, mercy. We can't do this to the Lord's anointed. So they take his water jug and his spear, and then they go off a few hundred yards and then start calling for Saul. Saul, Saul, why are you trying to kill me? Oh, is that you, my son David? Yes, I have your spear and your water jug. Send your messenger over to get it. I could have had your life in my hands and ended it. But I can't touch the Lord's anointed. Leave me alone. I'm not after you. And it wasn't long after this in the first book of Samuel that Saul meets his untimely death. We have mercy. And then we have this continuation of the Sermon on the Plain in the gospel. And one of the most powerful, so last week, Sermon on the Plain, I talked about beware when all men speak well of you. I took one of those passages and preached on this. And then so this week it is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. And we see this happening with David in terms of Saul, because he could be getting revenge for everything. And he's like, no, I gave him a warning. I gave him another warning. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I remember years ago in the seminary, I thought, had all these ideas about what seminary life would be like. And I remember Father Bob Crusoe, who is the pastor at All Saints here in Mesa. He was on my admission board, and he said, John, you're going to see things that you didn't expect. You're going to experience things and see things among the seminarians. And he says, some guys have a vocation. Some guys, their mom has the vocation, and she sent her son there. I don't know if that happens anymore. Sometimes it's the son has a vocation and the mom talks the son out of it. I remember Father Felt telling me a story about a guy he was in formation with, and the mom would call. This is the days of telephones and no internet and so forth. Mom would call all the time and say, come home, I want grandchildren. And you're like, wow, and he left. I don't know if he had a vocation or not, but if he did, I don't know if I want to be mom on Judgment Day, the day you have your exit interview with Jesus Christ. Mom, your son was called to be a priest. Here's all the people that he was going to minister, and through the sacraments they would be saved. And they weren't ministered to. What do you have to say? Ooh. God is a merciful God. but he's also a just God. And I went to the seminary. I thought, man, they're going to be all these guys, and they're going to be very holy, and they're going to be kind and so forth. And there were many like that. And there were others that were kind of lemons. And, you'd run into these folks and you'd have a challenge, So there was this one seminarian who studied for Phoenix. And he knew I came from St. Timothy's. And we're talking 1998. I'm 35 years old. This seminarian's about the same age, but he's about 6 or 7 years ahead of me. And anything liturgically tweaked that we would see, right, in our classes, in our liturgy prep, whatever, he would always say, hey, Greb, what do you think about that? I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to answer this guy, It's like, well, I don't like it. Why? And he'd grill me on these things. And I remember my first summer when I came back and we had a seminarian function, and I showed up, and he's like, oh, Greb, you're still with us. I'm like, wow. So, do unto others as you would have them do to you. I wasn't into that then. So when I would see him, I would use passive-aggressive language. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I would be a smart aleck. I would say smart things. And I was condescending too. And I'm working with my spiritual director and trying to get beyond this because, they can see these things in you, and hopefully we can see these things in ourselves. I remember too, I was taking Taekwondo, and one night I had a dream, and this seminarian had back issues, and I had this dream that I was doing roundhouse kicks into his back. You wake up in the morning like, yeah. But I had to stop. And I don't know what he noticed. I don't know if he cared. But it's like, no, let it roll off. Don't go there. My spiritual director told me to pray for him. I have another spiritual director here in the valley. Same thing. Pray for him and let these things go. Let it roll off your back. And that summer, later in the summer, he was ordained a deacon, and I went to his diaconate ordination, and it was up in northern Arizona. I don't know what happened after that. Things just changed. Those comments, those derogatory things, anytime he saw anything liturgically slanted, he didn't bring it up anymore. And we started to get along. It was weird. And then later, several years later, after he became a priest, he introduced me to Bishop Olmsted when Bishop Olmsted came here. And he said to Bishop Olmsted, here is John Greb. He's one of the good ones. And I'm like, whoa, something has really changed. Something has really changed. I remember too, in the seminary, there were guys. This was my second seminary, my theology seminary, and we had a lake in the middle of the property, and you could fish with a fishing pole and so forth. The lake really had hardly anything in it but carp. And some of the guys were spearfishing. And it's interesting because in that part of the country, right, you're in the Midwest, you have guys from all over rural America, especially the Midwest, that came there to study. Guys with outdoor backgrounds and so forth. And I asked the rector if I could fish as well using a compound bow. Some people flipped out. And the guys that were spearfishing, one of them, he started making my life a problem. You can't do that. I'm like, I got the rector's permission. You can't do that. And he would say things to me and bother. He told the security guard And the security guard would pull up. Oh, you can't do that. Well, I got permission from the president rector. I don't know who else I need to have permission from. Well, it's not legal in the township of Mundelein to launch a spear. I said, well, this is private property, dude. Anyway, I prayed about it and I talked to one of the priests there. He was originally from Poland. And he says, this guy's trying to get a reaction out of you. He's trying to get a reaction out of you, and he does. He knows where your buttons are, and he's pushing those buttons. Don't react. Don't react. You know when I quit reacting, when he says things, I just, yeah, oh, really? Oh, okay. It just took the wind right out of the sails, right out of the sails. Friends, we are called to treat others as we would like to be treated. Do you like sarcasm? Do you like passive-aggressive behavior? Do you like intimidation, insults, all these kinds of things? No. No. So we can't treat others with that kind of attitude. Christ is calling us to more. And if you act this way, that homily from last week, beware when all men speak well of you, when you act in a way that's respectful and kind, even when you're challenged with individuals who have agendas, there's going to be blowback. There's going to be blowback. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. If we all live this, what kind of a world would it be like?